Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette. We're so glad you're with us to stay curious. Today, beside me is Apollo and shuttle structural engineer Gary Allgire, one of your favorite guests here on Stay Curious. Hi, Gary.
Hi, how you doing, Mark?
Well, good to have you here. You've been doing tours on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yep.
He's a little bit of a snowbird. You go up to Georgia for the beautiful summertime up
Oh,
there.
it's beautiful up there. I was up there for 6 days and unfortunately had to come back.
I was jealous of the picture you sent me in the forest there. I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
I miss kind of getting in a forest and
Well,
walking
that's on,
around.
that's end of our lot. We still overlooking the creek and I had a fire in the fire pit there, and I just wanted to make sure let you know I was alive.
Yeah, I
thinking about
appreciate
you.
that. And he'd come back here. He does excellent tours here when you can catch him here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But I got him on here today because he's an invaluable asset of the things that you know that you did with Apollo and the shuttle. And here we have on the pad a beautiful aerial of the Starliner by Boeing, CST 100 officially, on the pad on top of an Atlas rocket. And you know what? We're going to talk about this launch Monday night and how 61 years ago an Atlas rocket took a Mercury astronaut to space.
That's right. Yeah.
And it was the last solo flight of an American astronaut too at that time.
That's right. I never thought about that, but you're correct on that.
Yeah,
Yes,
61 years ago. We've
yeah.
always flown at least two since then.
Yeah.
So, and we're going to compare, so I got Gary here. We're going to compare the Apollo command module with the Starliner, as well as Orion and the Crew Dragon. So, got a nice little show here for you today with a couple surprises. So, say hello to Marty Winkle, my co-producer. We're hitting about 1,040 episodes, my friend, of our Stay Curious episode. And we've got an intern named Logan in here from the Eastern Florida State University. Logan, thank you for joining us. And I hope that you can help these two old men do a little better job than what we've been
Speak
doing.
for yourself.
Well, I'm talking to Marty.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me. Still getting a little over a congestion that I had there, so excuse me on that. But Gary, how much money you saved up for our auction on Saturday here?
Not very much. Unfortunately. I've got enough of that stuff around the house. I don't need any more.
Yeah, that's kind of the luxury. I don't have to buy too much stuff either, as I've accumulated quite a bit here, buying it and people giving it to me. But yes, this helps our museum stay open. This is a big part of our general operating fund. This is the 32nd auction that we've conducted in the last, I think, 9 years. And it is very rich. Almost all of the 260 lots are NASA vintage photographs or Jet Propulsion Lab of the Mars missions by Mariner and Vikings. And then there's some Hubble images in there from the Hubble Institute in Baltimore, Maryland at St. Johns Hopkins University there. And so Bid Again Auctions and Chuck Jeffrey have been doing this. And we are grateful to Chuck for doing that. So it starts Saturday at noon. I'm going to add, Marty says, increase the gain a little bit. I pumped it up. I pegged it there, Marty, all the way over. So does that make any difference?
No. Uh-oh.
You're okay, though.
Okay. Well, we're...
You want me to aim it towards you?
That's right. No, I'm gonna switch it to like this. There. Well, I'm gonna switch the direction there like that, Marty. So maybe that helps out. Anyway, that's why we need an intern to help us go through this stuff. Not really. Every day's different. We've been doing a great job, and we couldn't have done it without Marty all these years learning our Streamlabs. But there's an example of some rare photos you can own for $300 or $400. Probably they'll go for 8x10s of Buzz Aldrin on the moon, right out of the labs of Johnson Space Center 50 some years ago. So hit the QR code, go to our website, easy to get to our auction. You sign up. If you want to own one of those photos and you're willing to pay $400 for it, maybe only go to $275, you'll get it for $300 then, the next level up. So bid till it hurts and enjoy it. You'll learn a lot about space history watching our auction. So want to give a shout out to the to some of our financial supporters there, Ram and Barat and Mal, husband, wife, and their son Barat, that do a gohistorytravel.org. Check it out there. They really are on the Space Coast a lot, getting astronaut autographs. This is where Michael Collins was born in Paris. I'm sorry, Rome. He was born in Rome. And they went to the exact building that Mike Collins, who passed away, Apollo 11 astronaut. So you'll see interesting things like that on there. And we surely appreciate the Ramanujams for their contributions financially to the American Space Museum. You can, of course, contribute money to us anytime you like by going to our website. We need bushel baskets full of $100 bills. You know that, to keep this place open. And that's not for my salary. And Marty, we're going to give him a raise, but since we pay him nothing, we just decided we just keep him at status quo there. But that's my way of saying Marty's one of our greatest volunteers this museum's ever had. Connie McDaniel's another one that's watching that faithfully gives a lot of her time and money to the American Space Museum. Well, through a little beautiful shot there of the man, Alan Shepard. I just almost get chills every time I look at this beautiful statue of America's first man in space. And then the, what was he? The fifth moonwalker on Apollo 14, the fifth man to walk on the moon. And that in the background are the Lucite headshots of our wonderful astronauts in the Hall of Fame. The Scholarship Foundation, founded by the original Mercury astronauts, inducts the Hall of Fame astronauts. And we've got Marcia Ivins is going in. And my gosh, I forget the other one going in. I'll get up to speed on that because we're going to have the CEO and president, Caroline Shoemaker, will be on our show Wednesday, May 8th, to talk about the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation that in 40 years has given away, I think, about $8 million in scholarships to hundreds of students. And one of those students was Christina Cook, who's now our Artemis II astronaut. She did a long-duration mission on the space station. Just a beautiful place there, the Astronaut Hall of Fame at Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex. And we'll be touting that all next week. Well, I got a couple birthdays to wish people happy birthday. This is Dominic Lee Pudwell Gorey, a veteran and pilot and commander of 4 shuttle flights, 49 days in space. Dom was born May 2nd, 1957 in Lake Charles, Louisiana. But his dad died when he was 6 years old, and the family moved to Miami. He is 67 years old today. That makes him. And there's Dom. Later in life there, he was a wrestler at Palmetto High School in Miami with a standout career, and he's honored as an outstanding American in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. He's not in the Astronaut Hall of Fame yet. I'll be lobbying for him. He commanded the final mirror docking, the 9th in final mirror docking, STS 91, and was on command of the Kiba Observatory being set up there. David Hilmers, thank you, Marty. David Hilmers and Marcia Ivins. Who corrected me on that? Steve Jokums? Oh, you did. Thank you, buddy. Yeah, David Hilmers and Marcia Ivins. You know her with the big hair, and when she's in space, a beautiful lady. And she's going to attract all the women astronauts. Had lunch with astronaut Kay Heyer in a NASA bunch yesterday, and Kay's here. Hell yes, I'm going to be here to see Marcia go in. Very popular 5-time astronaut, Marcia Ivins, going in with Hilmer, and Hilmer's got an illustrious career also, or he wouldn't be there. Well, we're talking about Dom Gorey here. There he is in his NASA blues. And the other birthday person today is Dorothy Marie Dottie Metcalf. Was born May 2nd, 1975 in Colorado Springs, Colorado, but considers Fort Collins to be her hometown. She was a science teacher in Vancouver, Washington, where she spent a lot of her adult life. And Dottie is the first space camp alumni to become an astronaut.
Oh, that's
the space
interesting.
camp out there in Huntsville. and become an astronaut. I think Christina Cook was also one. There's a handful of them. Whitman College, of course, her alma mater.
Yeah.
Alma mater. Dottie just had one mission to space, but it was really an exciting one. She married Jason Lindenberger, a fellow Whitman College graduate and educator, and they have a daughter, and she kept her maiden name and is known as Metcalf Lindenberger. When you're an astronaut, I think you want to carry your family name up there with you.
Yeah.
That you were known in there. She's a beautiful lady, does a lot of outreach speaking. Her 15 days in space was as a mission specialist on STS-131 in April 2010. And then she came back to Earth after that mission 14 or 24 years ago and had a birthday then. So she's an excellent singer. She was a lead singer for the all-astronaut rock band MarQ. And she sang at the St. Louis Cardinals Houston Astros game on the 40th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing on July 20th, 2009. Also a NEMO astronaut, underwater facility down there in Key Largo is where that's located in there. So great lady. Love to see her someday, Marty. She'd be a good one, I'll bet, to do a talk out there at the astronaut encounter. But when she was in space 24 years ago, 4 women, American women, were on the International Space Station. There she is, Dottie, on the left there, holding up some little stuffed animal of sorts. Up at the top there is these other three women, Dottie, and up at the top is Yamakaze, a Japanese astronaut, Noah Ramakaze, and the black lady there is Stephanie Wilson, and that is Tracy Dyson there on the bottom. Tracy Dyson is on the International Space Station right now.
Oh, is that right?
All right. She waited 14 years to go to space again. All right. And then Yamakaze, she is 53 years old, promoting space in Japan. And Stephanie Wilson is scheduled to be on Crew 9 for her 4th trip to space in September on the Crew Dragon 9. So all these ladies still very active in promoting space. And you all know Tracy Caldwell Dyson. She was on the NASA's channel with Station Life. She was the MC for Station Life, and she said, I think her tagline was up in space for down here on Earth, whatever. But so very animated. She also was a singer on the all-astronaut band called MarQ. So there you got the 2 lead singing ladies on there. So I'll bet they're belting out some Heart or some maybe who knows what lady singers up there. But I'd love to see them play one time too. So very historic photograph taken in April 2010. All right, where we had 4 ladies on the International Space Station. And who we got up there right now? Well, I said we got Tracy up there. We have any other women up there? Stay curious about that, and I'll answer your question. Well, I thought it'd be fun to show in here. You know, from time to time, Gary, we have people that want to use our museum for a B-roll, which is just color pictures to fill out a story, the background. Also, we've rented it a time or two for different productions to documentary makers and so forth. Well, this is Mitchell Tenpenny. A year ago, his video was released called We Got History, and they filmed it here, some of it on the Space Coast over at Spaceview Park, and right here in our museum. New video for him was a Sony publication, and it's a good song. I listened to it today. There's Mitchell. I just happened to run across these pictures and thought, you know what, let's share that today with everybody, that we're well known around the world for our humble little space museum. And the Gemini monument there in the background, they used that as a background. The story was something about like a I dated you 10 years ago, and though I don't even have your number now, we got history, and
Okay.
I'm going to rub it in your face that I'm an astronaut now. There they are filming this. They used our Cape Canaveral gallery as a spaceship, and they pulled it off
Yeah.
in there. And part of it was at the end of the We Got History. Mitchell Tenpenny. You want to check it out? Is him on there. And I took this off the video today, little screen grab there. It looks like they're a spaceship on there. So, and there he is in our setup there for our selfie pictures in there. So we're very grateful to Sony for financially contributing to our museum. And go check out this 2022 hit that went up to number 28 on the charts. Mitchell Tenpenny's 34 years old. He's married to another country music artist, Megan Patrick. His big hit went to number 6 in the charts, Drunk Me.
Oh, God.
That sounds like a country song.
Yeah, it does.
Course.
Yes, it does.
From his 2018 album, Telling All My Secrets. So there's a little bragging about how we're used from time to time by media, and even that's the only music video I think we've had done in our studio, but it really looks good. So check it out. Mitchell Tenpenny, We Got History there. Well, let's talk now about why I brought you on board here. Not that you know everything about everything, but you've got a perspective of human space flight that nobody else in this room does. So that's why I bring you in here. But there's a beautiful aerial on pad 41 of the United Launch Alliance rocket that is technically called the Atlas. What did they? Oh, I lost my notes on that. The Atlas. It's an Atlas Centaur rocket there. Atlas 5 N22. That's what it is on there. Before Carlton Bailey corrects me or somebody on there. But we're going to juxtapose that this Atlas rocket is now man-rated. It is, of course, of a derivation that exceeds the original Atlas rocket, the LV, that launched 4 Mercury astronauts in 1962 and 63. And here are our astronauts. Sunny Williams. Some people have been saying Suny, S-U-N-Y. I was corrected. Kay Hire corrected me on that. Her name is Sunny. And Sunny Williams, 360 days in space. Last time she went was 14 years ago. Butch Williams has got about 45 days in space on a couple of 3 shuttle missions. He launched 12 years ago. And I said to Kay Hire, isn't it wasting the talents of these people that they haven't flown in a decade? And Gary, she jumped down me like saying, no, they are test pilots. Yeah. They've been working their butt off for a decade to get this spacecraft.
There's a lot of training involved for these missions, especially for something that's new. They spent a lot of time back at the factory, back in Houston, and in other facilities where they actually make the actual components that makes up the spacecraft, and they'll be visiting those facilities to actually learn how that particular piece of equipment works.
And they've had some problems, as we all know.
They've had quite a few problems.
In fact, the Starliner was launched for the first time in December 2019. Remember that, Marty? I think I lost $1 to Marty because I bet him that Starliner would be orbiting humans before the Crew Dragon.
That's right.
And that 2019 was an aborted mission. They had problems with their sequencer. Very kind of foolish thing they did. They didn't link the launch to the orbit to the landing program. They just ran them separately and didn't bridge them. And they got bit by that, didn't they, Gary?
Yes, they sure did. Yeah, in fact, I think there was another issue there. If they hadn't corrected it real quick, it would have ran into the space station and crashed into it.
Wow. So kind of an embarrassment on Boeing. Yes. I didn't load up a slide here. We'll talk about that in a minute. It's going to land on land. All right. And they actually did bring this aborted mission back safely to Earth. And it landed out at White Sands in New Mexico. And they have parachutes and then a big cushion airbag.
They have airbags that deploy to absorb the last impact. I do want to point out something here on this picture.
Mm-hmm.
This reminds me of GT5 when we flew the 8-day mission. No, the 14-day mission.
Right.
That would be
Seven.
7. The suits are very similar to what they flew on 7. Is they're very lightweight. They don't have a hard. It looks like they don't have a hard helmet. They have a soft helmet that they put over them to make the spacesuit much more comfortable when they're sitting in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they used in 7 there, in GT7.
That's not a hoodie. That's a helmet that
Yeah.
they're going to flip over on
Flip
the back
over.
of them there. Yep. A
And-
little different spacesuit than the SpaceX went. This is a Boeing design.
That suit that they flew on 7 was the father that said, let's go do that, it was old man McDonald at McDonald Aircraft Corporation.
Uh-huh.
When the astronauts were complaining about the regular spacesuits and how uncomfortable they were and they couldn't sleep with them on, he suggested you build a lightweight suit for those guys to use on the Gemini programs.
Huh.
Now, it still was not comfortable because they ended up taking, one of the astronauts was given the approval to take his suit off so he could sleep. And then the other astronaut would be suited up, so if there was a pressure loss, at least they wouldn't lose the crew, and he would able to reseal it to protect the one. And then they would alternate. The other one would take his suit off, and when the other guy, the original one, put his suit back on.
Of course, those astronauts were Frank Borman and Jim Lovell. Borman passed away last year. Jim Lovell, at age 85, the oldest human that can say he orbited the Earth now. So we wish Jim Lovell well. Let's look at a little bit about these spacecraft here. I found this gorgeous picture of the integration of the Boeing Starliner to the top of the Centaur second stage there. You're kind of familiar with seeing scenes like this, aren't you?
Oh, yes. It's a different type of a mating situation that we did compared to what we did in the Apollo program. But anyway, what I see there on the left side there is a big umbilical that provides the connection between
the big L-shaped device sticking out there.
Right.
Good job, Marty. Go over there with that.
And that will have to be, probably has a guillotine in it like we had in the Apollo spacecraft that would actually, when they go to separate from the service module, what I call a service module, the guillotine will come in and slice through all the electrical connectors and the fluid lines. And that will pop back and lock in an open position so it will not interfere when they separate from the service module, or whatever they call it on this particular vehicle. I'm not real familiar with that, but that's what that is. And it looked like there may be a Star Trekker door right above. No, that's a patch. I was thinking it might be a Star Trekker.
Yeah, true. Yeah, and those are very important. Yeah. What's a Star Trekker door?
Star Trekker door, it's a Star Tracker. The shuttle had doors on them to protect them during the boost and re-entry, but normally all the spacecraft, at least through Apollo and the shuttle, they had a thing called Star Trackers, and they would select one. I don't know what, you would know this, what particular star.
Canopus was used a lot. Canopus, because it's a southern, you can't see it, Dave Stange, up in Michigan, but we can see it down here. It's right below the brightest star, Sirius.
Okay. Well, anyway, they would sight through that telescope and lock onto it, and that information we would put back into the computer, so whatever correction attitude that they needed to be in for any specific profile that they're going to fly, that's how they align the spacecraft.
Very important. These little ports and so forth you see on the side all have their reasons for being there.
And a lot of the experiments, you have to be in a certain attitude for it to work. We had one on the shuttle that went all the way through the whole design process, and then right there, the month before launch, safety came out and says, we don't like the attitude that you got to put the orbiter in because it puts the crew at risk at meteorites. And so they forced that system it flew it, but they couldn't use it because it was in the wrong attitude. Now, if they'd have known that very, very early, they would have redesigned it so it would have worked. But NASA kind of messed up on that one at JSC when they said, no, you cannot fly it.
Wow, that's interesting. They're from Gary Allgire, something that we didn't know about. Gary, here's a slide that I found. Got to give credit to this gentleman, Chara, in 2014, putting together a comparison of the size of above your head, of course, the SpaceX Crew Dragon that has flown 12 human missions to date.
Okay.
Up there, we've got one docked at the space station right now with Crew 8 up there. The Boeing Starliner's up above there. Left of it, you have Orion, and then compared the 50-year-old Apollo command module. And at first glance, three of them look pretty similar except for the size. I am impressed how much bigger Orion. Didn't know Apollo could actually fit inside of Orion.
It sure does look like it, yes.
In there. But the Starliner is just about a half, meters, meters, 3 feet. So you got about 13 feet on the CST 100 Starliner, and a little over 15 feet there for the Orion in diameter.
Okay.
And that's even though appreciably they don't much that bigger, when you figure out the 2 pi r squared of the heat shield, that heat shield on Orion is almost twice the size of the Apollo one.
Yeah.
And they got some problems with that Orion
They sure
heat shield.
did. Yeah,
They're finally revealing that was not as a nominal mission, the unmanned mission. It'd be 2 years in November, but
it didn't hold up very well on the re-entry.
Yeah.
At the speeds that they were coming in.
And they're coming in at the fastest speed any humans have come in on Artemis 2, over 35,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Right. So what strikes you as looking at these comparison of these 4 American spaceships?
Well, except for 3 of them, I mean, they were all looks the same. The Dragon is the one that's the exception. And I haven't seen the inside the interior for Orion or Starliner, but Dragon is very, very futuristic with the way they have set it in there. Very simplistic compared to, at least for the Apollo program, it was very, very complicated instrument panels that they had in there, because they didn't have the technology back then when we have today.
Right.
But otherwise, they're pretty. I don't know how the material they're using for heat shields. Now, Apollo, we used a blader. And I was looking at it the other day. Do you know that the aluminum honeycomb for the whole spacecraft, each one is individually inserted with a blader material.
Yes.
There's 300,070 cells that they had to fill.
Is that right? They had a display of that at Kennedy Space Center for a while, and showed that the Starliner ablative shield is a honeycomb.
Is it honeycomb?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also a lot of the structures honeycomb, but to save weight. Of course, they have materials now that are a lot stronger there. 12 feet high for the Crew Dragon, and about 11 feet for the Orion there. But it's so interesting that this Crew Dragon is even a different gumdrop.
Well, there's a reason for it, I think. What's different about this over the other vehicles have launch escape towers. The Crew Dragon has the launch escape system built into it.
Good point. Good point. The Dragon thrusters, they call them, in there. And boy, did we get a thrill on the Space Coast a few years ago.
Yes, we did.
When it blew up.
I heard that in Titusville.
Did you really?
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, they were doing a test on the Dragon thrusters, and they had a bad anomaly, and it destroyed the Dragon. It was gone. Yeah. And did you ever see the video of it? They had the video up for about 2 hours, and I saw it, and they pulled it immediately.
Okay.
But you'd see the Dragon there, and all of a sudden you just saw a puff. Yeah. And then nothing was there.
Nothing was there. They did damage to whatever the facility they were using, but I heard it was a loud bang. It was a muffled bang, not like a when they come back and they get the from the sound barrier, but it was a very large boom. And I said something happened out there until we saw it that night on TV. It blew up.
The Florida Today reporter Craig Bailey happened to be out on the beach, and he captured a picture of the distinctive reddish cloud caused by hypergolics, correct?
Yeah.
But we've had 12 successful crewed missions.
Yeah, it's interesting is that he was to compete with the Starliner. Even though they had that failure, they still beat the Starliner to the space station.
Yes, they did.
They captured the flag.
That's a good way to put it. Captured the flag.
Yeah.
of course, Starliner got beset with some electrical problems. The insulation wasn't waterproof. Marty, comment or question from one of our Stay Curious faithful.
We have a question from Gary Gerald. Gary, why do you think they chose to land on land versus splashing down in the ocean?
NASA really kind of liked it. We thought about that, or NASA thought about that in the Gemini program. They originally were going to have the Gemini capsule. They were using a Regalo wing that and had landing gear on the capsule, and they would land out in the desert of Arizona. The big issue is the Navy has to pull so many people and ships together to support a landing in the ocean, whereas it'd be much simpler and cheaper to land in the desert, like the Russians did over there on their planes. So it's really a manpower cost situation where it's easier on the budget.
Very good question, Marty. I'm looking at my smart tablet and I can see our guests here. Gary, what part of Georgia? Gary Gerald's up there in Collins, in the Vidalia.
Well, we're in Union County, Blairsville, Georgia.
Blairsville, Georgia. There you go, Gary.
Maybe he can come up and visit us.
As he could be probably with that big operation there. Nick Sedler. Nick, thank you for finding us. Nick says here, the engineering stories we get on this show are always capital GOLD, gold.
Oh, okay.
And that's because of the great people that we have like you on here. Nothing to my doing, of course, there. Nick, thank you. Nick also says he'd love to have a show on knowing how to authenticate space-related collectibles and who reputable sellers are. And we'll touch on that tomorrow, Nick. I'll call up some people. We have our collectible guys that I'll spread their names. And appreciate that. We got Robert Laws watching in Dundee, Scotland. And hello, Steve Jokums. And Nick has this, Sedler has this to say, musician Robert Warnock used sounds and samples from the American Space Museum and Kennedy Visitors Complex on his 2023 album, The Greatest Adventure, after a visit with you. That was the 40th anniversary of Apollo missions. So super. And I've learned a new way here on my smart tablet to stay curious with you all along the way. Though, Marty, you keep up the speed there, but that helps me pick out a few here that people are chatting in, and we appreciate y'all chatting in today. So let's turn back the clock here to 61 years ago, and the Mercury astronauts. The first two Mercury suborbital flights were on a Redstone rocket, and then they launched on the Atlas. And Bill Whiting, Marty, sent me this picture of a trading card of John Glenn in front of the Atlas rocket there. And it's even graded and everything there. Bill's a big baseball card and card collector up there in New York. Yes, Marty, go ahead.
Yeah, Dave Sang is asking, what's the maximum number of astronauts that can fly on this ship? And I think he's talking about the Starliner.
Yeah.
Let me see here. We had that slide up there. Gary, it says beneath Gary there. Oh no, let me make it small. What's behind my head there? 7? Starliner, the bottom number. Does that say 7?
It's either 1 or a 7. It must be a 7.
Yeah, it must be 7. So, and the Crew Dragon says they can have 7 seats and 4 seats on Orion. All right, I thought Orion could get a few more in there.
As big as it is.
Myself, but yeah, Starliner. They had a Starliner at the Visitors Complex, and you could look in it, and it kind of had the lawn chair seating thing in there, like you would expect. But I didn't see too much instrumentation around there. So, well, let's talk about these. Actually, that is the Atlas, Mercury Atlas 9 there. This is actually an uncrewed number 3. There's how it fits on top of the Atlas. They did not use the Agena rocket, all right? And this was only 3,000 pounds of mass, all right? Just a ton and a half to launch on this.
Very small cockpit for the astronaut to sit in. They really didn't experience zero G personally. All I could see was what was floating around them. because they were strapped in and there was actually not enough room for them to break loose and float around.
And they really didn't want that
No.
them to move around because we didn't
No.
understand.
No.
And there is the last time a human being was launched on an Atlas-rated, man-rated spacecraft, crew-rated spacecraft. That is on May 15th, 1963, Launch Complex 14, Phase 7. And on there is Gordo, one of my favorite astronauts was on that. He ended up being kind of a, I don't know how to characterize him. He was not enthusiastic as they wanted him to be.
He was the backup crew on Apollo 9, and he would have flown Apollo 10. And unfortunately, he did have a little bit of an attitude that he did not want to go through all that training. He knew how to do it already, and he just didn't see the quality of all that extra training. So they grounded him, and that was it. And he argued with, I guess, the NASA management quite a bit. So
he did. He was. I'm not gonna say he was aloof because he was a
Yeah.
very smart man, but he fell asleep during his countdown. He thought he got a chance to catch some winks up there. He did 22 orbits and you know, you're sort of just like, play the company line. You're gonna walk on the moon.
Yes,
You know, why buck the system? But boy, astronauts are their own person.
That is true, and unfortunately, it kind of bit him in the rear end.
Yeah. Marty, remember we stood in line with his daughter out at Kennedy Space Center, and I've reached out to her several times to get her on the show, and we've not been able to effort that. She said she lived over in Orlando. Maybe she moved away there, but I was thinking of her. So here on May 6th, 2024, 61 years later, a human being, two of them, are going to get on top of an Atlas rocket. Here is Gordon Cooper. Gordo, Phase 7, all right. Big smile. He then kind of had a controversial career. He was actually one of the first CEOs of Disney out there. He was involved with a scam during the 70s gasoline crunch, when gasoline was going from 35 cents a gallon to almost double that, and everybody was losing their minds. He had some sort of a device he was promoting to get more mileage on your carburetor. And I think General Motors sued him and says, you better stop talking about that, because that's urban legend stuff.
Yeah, there was a lot of speculation that people had anybody had invented a carburetor that would get you real extensive long mileage. The car companies would come in and buy out that contract or your patent and bury it. I don't think that's true, but that's what they did.
Well, Gordo there, we'll celebrate him. We'll talk about his mission on May 15th, of course, like we always do. Spent a whole day in space, that brilliant smile. Then some of you might remember him talking on his Gemini. He flew with Pete Conrad on Gemini 5, the 8 days or bust mission. And he claimed that he saw treasure ships from space. And there was a whole Discovery reality show about that. And I'm telling you, don't believe a word about it. I've looked at the maps of his orbits. He didn't even go over some of those places.
Oh, really?
That they talked about on there. But Gordon Cooper, one of the legacy astronauts that helped found the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation.
And his mission, he landed the closest to the carrier of all the four astronauts that were.
Yeah, he was not unskilled. His missions were very good. He didn't get in trouble like Scott Carpenter for wasting fuel and doing things that Scott Carpenter wanted to do. And so he's a real anomaly that he got kicked out of the Corps, though they don't call it that in Apollo, because of his attitude on there. But I don't know, maybe I'd kind of empathize with him there. Hey, I've already done this 20 times. Why do I have to do it again?
That's right,
I know what I'm doing, but that's sort of like maybe that 21st time you do it, something happened that you didn't predict, and you're glad you did it.
Apollo 13 rather, showed how important it was to have the proper training.
Exactly. Here's the Legacy Atlas, technically the LV-3B, derivative of a nuclear rocket that was tipped with a nuclear warhead there called the the SM 650 Atlas ICBM, Intercontinental Ballistic Mission missile. That ICBM used to just flow off of our lips all the time in the news. You never hear anybody say that word.
No, that's right. That was a big thing in the news back in those days.
But of course, John Glenn, Scott Carpenter, Wally Schirra, and Gordon Cooper flew an Atlas crewed-rated rocket.
There's a lot of effort to make it man-rated. Redundancy had to be put in there, and more safety concerns as far as going from a regular ballistic missile to deliver warheads to when we would start putting humans on board. There's quite a bit of effort there. There was also quite a bit of effort for the Titans that they flew the Gemini program on.
Absolutely. The Titan was also a ballistic missile that was going to be in silos. Well, it was in silos all over America. The MX missile system up there. Well, here's what today's United Launch Alliance Atlas V, technically called the Atlas 5N22. N22 stands for the configuration of the side thrusters. Solid rocket boosters are going to be on the side of this to give it extra boost. It's got two RD-180 engines.
It only has one.
Only has one?
Yeah, it has two nozzles.
Oh, two nozzles. Okay, there we go.
That's a Russian engine. That's the last, I think it might be the last ones we fly with that on it. But that's came out of the Russian moon program.
And they don't advertise that right now these days. Yeah. But it will have a second stage to get them to orbit, the Centaur, the famous Centaur rocket that has been paired for over 6 decades with this wonderful Atlas rocket. I think that's just exciting. 6 decades, really, and sort of the same rocket.
It's amazing.
It's been upgraded with, of course, 21st century materials. But
and what's interesting is the original Atlas had three engines on it. There were 2 that were on the outboard side that would drop off early into the flight. It was called a stage and a half rocket. It didn't have 2 full stages. And the outer set of engines would fall off, and then they would use the center core engine to put them in orbit. When they put the Russian RD-180 engine on that vehicle, it replaced all 3 of those engines, and that one engine had more thrust than those 3 put together.
Just a little under 1 million pounds of thrust, I looked up. I think about 800,000 pounds of thrust on this rocket. The launch time is 10:34, I think, Monday night. And we talked about Starliner was launched in December 2019 on a very anticipated launch that was going to put them ahead of SpaceX, and it didn't. And then they redid the flight, believe it or not, May 19th, 2022, 2 years ago, is when they did the uncrewed OFT-2, second uncrewed launch of Starliner. That was a pretty nominal mission. Here's that on the pad. Gorgeous, beautiful shot there of United Launch Alliance's pad there. Of course, they have to have a gantry to get the astronauts up into the spaceship. We'll be anxiously watching that Monday night on NASA TV, of course. And then the launch of the Starliner OFT-2, the uncrewed launch. This was May 19th at 6:45 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I find that time hard to believe because it's showing it's at night here, but maybe I pulled the wrong picture, but that is the configuration launch of that. Something similar what we're going to see from Carlton Bailey's remote cameras probably when CB's out there. So pretty interesting I think to look back. Hope you've enjoyed looking back a little bit there at the history of this Atlas rocket. I think it's pretty cool, really.
It is.
Half a century later, the same named rocket, looking pretty much the same, is going to take people to space.
It's got a long legacy. Same thing with the Delta. We just flew the last Delta, though, but it has a long history also, about the same time frame.
Yeah, the Delta. So we're great anticipation of this mission. astronauts like Kay Hire are in town to support Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmer, both very well known in the astronaut corps. And one pet peeve that astronaut Kay Hire had was quit calling them passengers. She said, these are not passengers. They are flying this spacecraft. They are integrated with this spacecraft. They are needed on this space. Quit calling them passengers, she said. And they're going to take about a day to dock. By the way, it doesn't have a escape tower.
Yeah, I just noticed that.
So it's got some sort of thruster
on it too.
Things like those Dracos on there. But because that'd have to be the docking hatch that they're looking at the top there. And there's no cover over it like we saw with the Apollo.
Well, that was due to the launch escape tower.
Okay.
As it went off, and if they used the launch escape tower, even if it's a normal mission, they didn't want all that exhaust plume impinging on the actually the silver mylar tape that was on the outer skins and also on the windows to protect the windows.
What was I saying? Butch Wilmer. What was I calling him?
Oh, gosh.
Steve Jokins is correcting me. Yeah, it is Butch Wilmer. I don't know what I was calling him. Thanks for correcting me there, Steve. And I know you'll be looking at the Miami Formula One race this weekend like me. I may have said Butch Wilkins. Butch Wilmer. Butch is his name. And I'm trying to think of what his real first name is. Barry. I believe Barry
You
Wilmer.
better than I do at remembering names.
Well, that's my Hedge Against Alzheimer's. So, who's in space right now, Gary? How many people we got orbiting the Earth?
I have no idea.
Come on.
I know you do. I know you do.
Well, I only know because I created a meme for it.
Yeah.
There we go. No, we love keeping track of who's in space. Right now, 10 humans orbiting the Earth, okay? We got 3 Chinese that just got up there about 6 days ago on their Shenzhou 18. Now, Gary, this is their 13th human mission in their history, China. 13, all right? We had 10 Gemini missions in the 60s, but look at what they're doing with the experience quickly gathering.
Well, they got there's a lot of experience that they learned from us by either hook or crook. There's a lot of stuff. We've been flying for 60 years, and so they know a lot already. And it doesn't take very much for somebody to start up and say, "Hey, let's go do this." Look at what Elon Musk has done with his spacecraft, and soon we'll be doing with Elon Musk, and also with the Boeing people. We've learned all this stuff, and we don't want to repeat it.
Thanks for looking that up, Barry Wilmer.
Barry Wilmer. Okay.
No, we don't. We have done some of the hard.
Yeah, we did all the hard learning stuff, and then of course that helps them out. So it's not surprising. I mean, they're highly technical people anyway, but they can come on board pretty darn quick.
And boy, they have. Let's look at the 10 humans orbiting Earth. Soon to add 2 to that. They're gonna go up to the International Space Station where we have Crew Dragon 8 up there. A senior citizen is up there. Oh my gosh. Let me grab my Who's in Space name here so I don't have to struggle too much. You've got Michael Barrett there. The bottom picture on the left, that's Michael Barrett, the second one in. Beside him is Matthew Dominic. And in the middle is the Russian Alexander Gribin and Jessica Watkins, the second black woman to live on the International Space Station. 3 or 4 African-American women have visited, but she's the second one to live up there. And then you've got the convoluted crew of Soyuz MS-25, the spacecraft that's going to bring him back. Now, you've got on the left is Oleg Konyenko, and on the right is Nikolai Chubb. They've been up there 6 months already, and they are going to stay up there until September and have a complete over a year in space. And this Konyenko on the left-hand side, age 59, he is the most experienced human ever to go to space. He has over 970 days now.
Wow.
Orbiting the Earth on 5 missions. This is his 5th trip to the International Space Station. Imagine that. It's just he knows every nook and cranny of that place up there.
Oh, I'm sure, yes.
And everybody's looking at him for leadership because he's been up there so long. And he's a Russian, but there's just the only country, there's no countries that matter when you're in an international space station, and everyone's life depends on it. And then we talked about Tracy Caldwell Dyson. She's 54 years old, and she was up there on Expedition 118. Expedition 23 on 118, and then she took a Soyuz up in 2010. So one of our great astronauts that does a lot, and Tracy Caldwell. So 3 Chinese, 3 Russians, and 4 Americans. The 3 superpowers orbiting the Earth. Soon to add Suni Williams and Butch Wilmer up there Monday. And we're just going to say Godspeed to them and hope that they have a nominal mission. Boeing certainly needs it with some of the things that Boeing's been going through on Earth with their planes and so forth. So, Gary, thanks a lot for coming in at the last minute here. I knew you'd enhance my feeble knowledge about stuff here, but sort of sit back. Well, what do you think about this launch coming up, and just how easy they're making it look? But it's so hard, isn't it?
It's very, very difficult. There's a lot of stuff that we don't see as normally. All the prep work that has to be done and the paperwork that they have to keep track of offline. Each component that's used in there has to be completely checked out, and it has to meet whatever spec that the manufacturer of that particular piece of equipment has to be met. Otherwise, they just don't fly it. So there's a lot of work, a lot of overtime. I'm sure that they were putting involved in trying to get this thing to finally get up in orbit. And I'm pulling for them. I hope it works very well. There's been a lot of negativism about this, and that this may, if it doesn't go well, that may be the end of the Starliner. So
there you go.
So it's very, very important. They're betting the house on this thing. So
that's absolutely right. Boeing, the whole factory, the whole company is on edge about this being a good mission. But when you got great astronauts, and this is where Kay Heyer gave me the confidence, because these are test pilots. She said they have not wasted their time on Earth the last 10 years. They are what is needed to make this spacecraft work. They're both very smart and very experienced. That's the experience they need. I understand Sonny, has been particularly finicky about things that need to be right. Their lives depend on it.
That's right.
And also NASA needs this spaceship to keep the rotation going for the International Space Station as Blue Origin is moving onto the scene. All right. And you've got SpaceX is leasing their spacecraft to anybody that wants to fly in them, basically. So
there's another vehicle coming online, the Starship, not the Starship, but the one that looks like a shuttle.
Dream Chaser.
Dream Chaser, yes, is coming online. That's going to be an exciting thing.
Yeah, that used to be called Sierra Nevada. Now they just call it Sierra. But right now it's uncrewed version. They're just going to have it for cargo. But it was intended to be crewed, and it does look like a mini shuttle, kind of like the Hermes that Europe was developing as their contribution to the space station. Another crewed spacecraft that never became to fruition. The
same
Hermes.
Thing. X-20, which was a military version of a flyback booster.
The dinosaur.
Dinosaur.
Yeah.
But there was X-20 that was actually the name of the flyback portion of it. It would be crewed.
Well, Steve Jokum says here, if that's true, we have to have Boeing learn this stuff all over again. So.
Oh yeah.
I hear you. So anyway, go Ferrari is what I say too. There, Jokums, and if you follow F1, this is becoming an exciting season because a lot of drivers are going to change, and the great Adrian Newey stepped down as the designer for Red Bull and here next year. So, but I digress there. Thank you, my friend, for your wonderful knowledge. Gary has got one of our most popular programs, Marty. Over 550 people have watched his Apollo 1 story episode that it was so eloquent how you put it into perspective to things that we never thought about before. So go check that out. Just Google Gary's name on our YouTube channel, and he's got 3 or 4 good ones there. Buran, you did a show on the Russian Buran spacecraft that has over 350 views. So And you've helped us make, I think we made $15 last month on YouTube. So
Okay.
go see Karan and she'll give you your percentage of it there
Yeah.
after we cut Marty in on it. So, well, thank you everybody
Okay.
for staying curious with us today. Marty, excellent job on the board. We've got an intern, Logan, in here who's he's wondering what are these crazy guys talking about.
Yeah.
So, but hopefully Logan can help take us to the next level. Couple things we want to do that we don't do frequently enough that Marty and I want to get into, and that's bringing European guests on like Alex Carl, the ESACOM, and Brock Keats, one of the engineers working on the gateway, and we'll get them in the house here soon. So thank you, Gary, for everything you do to promote the American Space Museum, and we say Godspeed the crew of Boeing's Starliner. We hope everything goes well. Tomorrow we're going to talk about our auction, and I'm going to pick up where one of our guests today asked about how do you know things are authentic? How do you know you're buying from the right person? And we'll give you a few tips on that I've learned along the way if we can't haul somebody in here to talk about it. So until next time, I'm Marquette saying I can't wait to see you in our museum and have a tour with Gary to bridge the
Stop by.
space between us.